Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go through on how to cut and fabricate a custom miter on a seamless rain gutter. So we're just going to be using basic hand tools. First thing we need to do is figure out what angle exactly we need on the building. So I kind of drew just a template here. Just imagine this is the top of a house. Normally you do this on the house, on the fascia, but just for this video I just wanted to use a drawing. So imagine this is the top view of a house. We have our angle finder, and what we're going to do is figure out exactly what angle we need to cut in our rain gutters to get the perfect match. So this is a 30-degree angle on here, and each miter coming in is going to split that angle. So in this case, 30 degrees divided by 2 is 15. So we're going to cut two 15-degree angles on our rain gutter, and then that will equal a 30-degree total angle. So today we're working with a 5-inch K-style aluminum rain gutter, and this is your most standard size around here, and it's probably the most complicated to do handmade miters on. So once you get this mastered, you can make a custom corner out of any gutter. So we have our two square cut gutters here. Our end goal is to get these to meet together at a 30-degree angle and look nice. I always put hangers in while you're cutting corners because this gutter is pretty flexible, and when you're measuring your angles, if the gutters are bent or twisted at all, it'll really throw your end cuts off. So I always throw hangers in to keep everything aligned and square. I usually use a marker just so you can see, or a good pencil, just so you can see the lines really well. One of these is going to have, we're going to cut an inch extra for flaps on it. The other one is just going to be a nice, clean, smooth cut that covers up those flaps and sleeves into the other gutter. So in this situation, we're going to use our left-hand gutter as our finished cut, the gutter that sleeves over. This will be our first gutter. So our total goal is a 30-degree angle, as I said earlier, and so we're going to cut two 15s. So you use your pivot point on the square, and you always start with a nice straight back cut, and then just pivot your pivot point of your square on that straight back cut until you hit 15 degrees over on the other end of the square. So next what we do is, I got the back of the square, the pivot point of the square lined up with the straight back of the gutter, and you'll notice if you tip your head side to side, it changes where your reference point is on the bottom. So you'll want to use the very bottom of your nice square straight cut on the back and line your head up to that point and keep your head there, so that way your angle doesn't change while you're tracing. So I got everything lined up, and what I'll do is I'll just kind of draw a line right where I can see the square, this edge of the square up here. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but just get close, and then when you do your snipped cut, you can kind of smooth that line out and make it nice and straight. So a good way to think of getting this cut nice and straight is imagine either drawing a laser down here or a chop saw, something like that. I actually use a chop saw sometimes to cut these, and that kind of gives you the idea of how you want this cut. You just want it nice and straight from the top to the bottom, like you had a chop saw, just cut straight through it. Okay, so we got our first, this is actually our second gutter. You hang the gutter with the flaps first, but I got this one cut nice and clean. This is going to be our finished line that you'll see, so you want to make sure this one's nice and straight. So now we'll cut our gutter with flaps in it. This will be the first gutter you'll hang, and the best way that I found to do that is to draw the actual line that this gutter is going to mate into. So both these lines will basically be touching each other, and I space my square off of this end about 3/4 of an inch, half inch, depending on how big you want your flaps. I wouldn't go any shorter than a half an inch, just so you have some room to put your zip screws in. So we'll line this one up to 15 degrees as well. So now I have this lined up with my nice square back line that I put on. I left about 3/4 of an inch there. 15-degree angle again. Go ahead and mark the front, and then same thing with this one. You'll want to just use this bottom point down here as your reference point, and don't move your head. This is kind of like an arts and crafts project. Okay, got my line all drawn out. So now I continue my 3/4 inch extension away from my scribed mark. And this one doesn't have to be clean because this is just the edge of your flaps. I do cut the top lip right on the line because those two top lips are going to butt together. And then I just cut that top lip off and make a little flap. And how I make my flaps is you kind of angle into a point, and that point needs to meet at the line. And those angles give you a relief in your cuts, so when you bend your flaps together, it gives them a little bit of room to move together. So where you need to do your relief cuts is at every sharper bend on the face of the gutter, so that way it can fold into this other corner. So right here is a tight bend, so we'll do one flap right here. Right here is a tight bend, we'll do one flap right here. And then this is obviously a really tight bend. We'll do another flap there. We'll cut that. And then we'll cut the back here. I'll show you how to do that. Just to a point, make that point right to the line. And the bigger the degreed angle, the more relief you need in these flaps. And then with this back one, you kind of visualize where this other gutter is going to come into it at, and you have to give it enough relief to where your other gutter doesn't hit the bottom of your flap back here. And then I always just cut a little snip off the back just to kind of give me some room to work back there. So there we are. Got all of my flaps cut. That's what it looks like. You can use your fingers to bend these, pliers. I have some like 3-inch flat nose seamer pliers that work pretty good for this. I don't have any of those with me right now, so one thing I also do sometimes is the square. So I'll just put the square on there as my straight edge and then bend it around the square. Works pretty good. Okay, so we got our 2 pieces of gutter here. Like I said before, normally I hang the one with flaps first. This will be your top gutter, the higher gutter of the two. No downspout probably. Goes up first. This line goes right into your corner of the fascia. Once that's up and secured, then you'll slide your nicer cut, clean cut, into this gutter up on the fascia. And they'll flip right together. One common thing that happens is these ends don't let you push them together far enough to hide all of your little wedge cuts. And so you can just use your tin snips after they're together to snip off a little wedge off of there so they can mate together a little farther. So this is a little harder to do on the table, but when this goes into the fascia, you'll have these two lined up. Make sure all your flaps are inside of your outer gutter that you'll see, and then you'll just put a zip screw through the top back here. Make sure they're pushed together well, and then you can kind of form all your flaps to fit this other gutter. So this is how it should turn out. Your clean line was on the outside. If you need to, you can put a little touch-up paint on here. This was already scratched before we started, but it turned out pretty clean. One nice clean line on the outside. I usually put 2 zip screws on the bottom, and then one in the front. There's a big tab on the inside. I get into that big tab just for strength. And then if you're having problems keeping the corner together, you can kind of put a screw anywhere you need to suck everything together. So usually I only put 1 up in this area, and then 2 in the bottom, and then 1 in the back. It's a nice strong corner. And then these do require a little bit more glue than normal because the glue will settle into these flaps. So make sure and use like a flathead screwdriver and tap all these tight before gluing, and then put a big glue bead of sealant on there that extends past your cut tips here, and then also past your flaps on this side. So about 2 inches wide strip of sealant in there. And there you have it. There is an inside handmade custom corner. So the only difference in when doing an outside corner, you get your measurement the same way. The only difference would be you'll bend your back flap the other direction. I actually wait until the gutter's hung and then fold it in. And then the inside, the front face flaps on an outside corner, you'll want to fold a little bit so that way you can slide your other gutter on top of them. You'll want to fold them in a little bit before installation. Then also keep in mind when you're cutting your bottom to make your relief cut on the front here, doing an outside corner more aggressive than the gutter coming into it, so they're not hitting each other. So that's how we make our handmade custom miters, and you can do these in any angle using those same methods. Just make sure you find a good angle finder and then use a speed square for your cuts. Works really well. Cuts that you do very consistently, like a 45 degree, we use just a template, cut a template, and then you can throw it in your gutter and trace it. Makes the tracing process a little faster. If you guys like our videos, make sure and like it. Comment below if you have any questions, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks.